What it does is it requires Baldoni to prove a higher burden than he would otherwise have to prove in this defamation lawsuit.
If and when their defamation lawsuit is dismissed.
Blake Lively is panicking as the judge denies the dismissal of Justin Baldoni's defamation countersuit. Her legal protection is crumbling, and everything is spiraling out of control.
It's a huge risk, and so it's not a fair fight. They're going into this with uneven risks on either side.
With public opinion turning, financial risks mounting, and her credibility on the line, Blake's courtroom power play is backfiring spectacularly, unraveling right before her eyes.
Juries don't like liars. Trials are about credibility.
Blake Lively walked into court with all the confidence of a queen, flaunting California's shiny new weapon, the so-called powerful Me Too privilege law, Section 47.1, like it was her golden ticket to victory. But things aren't playing out the way she expected.
She used the California law as background for her dismissal.
Sorry, Blake, but this isn't Gossip Girl, and there's no automatic win just because you flashed a shiny new law. This isn't your Netflix script. It's real court, and the reality check hit hard. Let's rewind for a second. Blake Lively, Hollywood's golden girl, Ryan Reynolds' better half, the red carpet darling everyone used to swoon over, just got absolutely wrecked in court. The legal gamble she thought would be her ace in the hole, it's backfiring big time.
So she's talking about Baldoni's First Amendment complaint. And remember, this is Lively wanting to dismiss the First Amendment complaint claims against her. They're saying that it does not allege a single element of the defamation or false light claim.
Blake Lively just legally face-planted, and the worst part, she never saw it coming. Her grand plan was to crush Justin Baldoni's defamation countersuit with what she called an ironclad motion to dismiss. Bold move, Blake. But the judge took one glance, probably sipped their coffee, and said, "Nope, this stays." Now, the whole scheme has blown up in her face. Baldoni's countersuit? Still alive, still kicking, and still ready to strike back.
But is it valid though? If the judge says, yes, you can use California law in this instance, could they dismiss his case because of that?
This isn't just another Hollywood courtroom disaster. It's a full-blown meltdown where a top-tier celebrity tries to flex in federal court and gets ruthlessly humbled. And it's not just embarrassing, it's costly. We're talking millions of dollars on the line. Let's not forget, this is the same Blake desperately clinging to that America's sweetheart image while playing legal dodgeball. Sorry, Blake, your image is cracking, your courtroom strategy is crumbling, and your reputation is hanging by a thread.
We're going to see that this law is somewhat devastating to some of the claims that are being made here.
Now let's talk about the reckless gamble Blake made with California's shiny new Me Too law, Section 47.1 of the Code of Civil Procedure. Her legal team, led by Ezra A. Hudson over at Manat, Phelps, and Phillips, really thought they'd found their golden ticket. They bet everything on this law, supposedly designed to protect sexual harassment disclosures from retaliation. Sounds noble, right? Except there's a catch. It only works if the disclosures were made in good faith and without malice. Somehow, Blake's team either missed the crucial detail or chose to ignore it. Not sure which is worse, but either way, it's blowing up in their faces.
It requires Baldoni to prove a higher burden than he would otherwise have to prove in this defamation lawsuit. So he actually has to show that Blake Lively's, anything she said, any communications she made about SH, that they were made in malice. And so that's a higher standard that he has to prove.
And let's talk timing for a second. This law, Section 47.1, went into effect on January 1st, 2024. And guess when Blake decided to file her complaint? Yep, right after that, because of course she did. It's almost like she was waiting for the ink to dry on the law before pulling the legal trigger. Totally not suspicious at all, right? The timing couldn't be more convenient or more transparent.
To some claims that are being made here. And what 47.1, it bars retaliatory lawsuits based on public disclosures of sexual harassment and related allegations, including disclosures to the press.
Now here's the icing on this lopsided cake. Her lawyer actually had the audacity to call Baldoni's countersuit a profound abuse of the legal process. The irony is off the charts. Is this satire? Because the only thing being abused here is common sense. Sure, Section 47.1 offers some serious protections, but only if you play by the rules. You can't just whip it out like a shield every time someone calls you out. Blake tried to wield it like a get-out-of-lawsuit-free card, and the judge basically said, "Nice try." And that's where Blake's entire argument face-planted, tripping over its own flawed logic.
It's just that in this case, it looks abusive.
She tried to pull all of this in California just to activate her shiny new law. But here's the problem. Everything happened in New York. Like, seriously? Girl, did your lawyer skip jurisdiction 101? Trying to flex a California law over something that went down on the other side of the country is a legal disaster waiting to happen. And now it's blowing up spectacularly.
The judge in Blake Lively's case just slapped down their psychopathic request.
That's legal strategy 101. You don't file in California just because you like California law. That's not how it works. That's not how any of this works. What Blake just pulled is a classic jurisdictional faceplant, and it could completely wreck everything she tried to accomplish. It's like trying to play chess while ignoring half the rules. No wonder it's backfiring.
Your lawyers are stupid. It's like he's like being nice here. He's like, your lawyers are really stupid.
Now let's tear apart her so-called evidence, the stuff she used to prop up her harassment claims. Starting with the big one, Baldoni allegedly had the audacity to, wait for it, comment on her appearance on set. Scandalous, right? Nope. That's literally what directors do every single day. Critiquing an actor's looks, costumes, angles, and presentation, it's part of the job. It's called being a co-director, not harassment. But of course, Blake took that and blew it up like she was starring in her own over-the-top courtroom drama, screaming harassment at routine feedback. Talk about stretching the definition to its breaking point.
California law relative to the lawsuit against Lively for defamation is a little problematic. So we have not seen the opposition yet that the Wayfair parties are going to make to the motion to dismiss filed by Lively, but I suspect that they're going to want New York over California law. We'll see what they do.
And then there's her next so-called smoking gun. Baldoni entered her trailer to tell her she looked unflattering in the footage. The way Blake framed it, you'd think he broke into her house with a ski mask and a megaphone, but nope. According to multiple sources, it was just normal production talk, something that happens all the time in the real world where actors and directors interact like professionals. But to Blake, that was harassment. Either she's wildly exaggerating, or she's trying to weaponize everyday workplace dynamics for some courtroom drama. And let's be real, neither one is a good look.
Blake has expectedly filed to be dismissed from the lawsuit against her. Her argument that she is presenting is that the lawsuit in and of itself is illegal, okay, because the matter at hand is pertaining to sexual harassment.
And we're not even done yet. Let's talk about the dancing scene. Yeah, you heard that right. There's actual video and audio of Blake dancing and laughing with Baldoni. No fear, no trauma, no discomfort. Just straight up chill vibes. So explain this. How are you claiming harassment while you're out there practically having a party on set? That's like accusing someone of theft while handing them your wallet with a smile. You can't make this stuff up. It's hypocrisy served with a side of receipts, and it's all unraveling fast.
It's intensely personal. It's getting more personal. They're going to discover more information that's going to make them angry. They're out to salvage their reputation, so there's not going to be an easy way to walk away from this and say, okay, let's just call it a day.
Oh, and then there's the 17 demands exactly. So Blake allegedly handed over this must-have list before she'd even consider returning to filming after the writer's strike. Most people came back with a coffee and a calendar. Blake came back with a whole manifesto. These weren't boundaries, they were power plays. The kind of demands you make when you're trying to hijack a movie, not just star in it. And let's be real, the vibe wasn't Justice Warrior. It was more like hostile takeover in heels. You know how some people play chess. Blake didn't just make a bold move. She tried to flip the entire board.
And we will see how 47.1 can be devastating, but there are certain hoops you have to jump through for 47.1 to apply.
Let's break it down. You've got a celebrity trying to paint herself as a victim, but she's got nothing solid to back it up. Her legal team's tossing around brand new laws like they're Monopoly cards, thinking they got a winning hand. Jurisdiction issues that would make even a first-year law student cringe, and the evidence. It's evaporating faster than Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool sarcasm. This whole thing is falling apart at the seams.
You are not able to hold a logical thought, but guess what? I, as a judge, I am able to hold a logical thought. So we're going to slap that down. You obviously cannot do.
At the end of the day, and let's be clear, no conclusions here, Blake Lively walked into court thinking she was serving legal brilliance. What she actually served was legal nonsense with a side of desperation. The judge saw right through it. Her motion didn't just fail, it blew up spectacularly. And that defamation countersuit she was so desperate to crush, still here, still strong, still waiting.
And, so I think there could be some argument about whether it was leaked and shouldn't have been leaked and should they have the information or what it may be. But no matter what happens, this is a damning quote.
And now we've reached the part of Blake Lively's legal train wreck that makes you stop and say, girl, what were you thinking? Seriously, someone calls Serena van der Woodsen because Blake clearly needs a refresher on logic and law. Let's break down how our courtroom princess thought she could drag California law into a situation that screams New York from every angle. Here are the facts. Justin Baldoni, New York resident. Events, all New York-based. Blake's bright-eyed, file everything in California. Why? Because California's got her favorite shiny toy. Section 47.1. The you can't sue me for calling someone outlaw. But here's the thing, Blake. Just because you prefer California's legal climate doesn't mean it applies. The courtroom isn't your personal dressing room where you get to pick whichever law makes you look best. And right now, your strategy is falling apart at the seams.
It is so clear Blake's case is falling apart. She's destroying her cred. Ryan Reynolds.
What Blake clearly didn't grasp, or flat out chose to ignore, is something called diversity jurisdiction. Basic federal court concept, not exactly rocket science. When people from different states are tangled up in a lawsuit, the federal court has to break down each claim and figure out which state law actually applies. You can't just go eeny, meeny, California and expect the court to nod along. And this wasn't some minor slip-up. This was a colossal miscalculation. Ignoring jurisdiction rules isn't just careless, it's legal malpractice territory.
Attorney here goes on to say, on top of that, Section 47.1 contains a mandatory fee provision that will require the Wayfair parties to pay not only Ms. Lively's attorney's fees, but also treble damages and punitive damages. Of course, those would have to be proven.
Baldoni's team did file claims against the New York Times under California law. Fair enough, since it's a national publication with broad reach. But that doesn't mean Blake's mess automatically falls under the same umbrella. There's a huge difference between suing a major media outlet and suing a co-worker who allegedly launched a smear campaign because she didn't get her way on set. Baldoni's legal team can, and likely will, argue that New York law applies to Blake's defamation case. And here's the kicker, New York doesn't have Section 47.1. In other words, Blake's shiny legal superpower, completely useless. The very law she banked her entire case on just got stripped away.
Breaking news, Justin Baldoni just got a big win, meaning Blake Lively got a big loss.
So let's get this straight. Blake Lively built her entire motion to dismiss around a California law that might not even apply. If that's not the crack in the hull of her whole case, I don't know what is. Honestly, if her legal strategy were a ship, it'd already be halfway underwater, with the band playing Nearer, My God, to Thee. It's Titanic-level legal disaster, and Blake's the one steering straight for the iceberg.
It seems insurmountable. It seems like this case cannot be settled.
Now let's dive into something even messier, Blake's actual motive. Because once you strip away the legal fluff and PR spin, it starts looking like this whole "I'm a victim" campaign was just a smokescreen for a hostile takeover. According to Baldoni's first amended complaint, Blake's sexual harassment allegations didn't emerge from some explosive, clear-cut incident. Nope. They conveniently surfaced after a series of creative clashes. Translation? She didn't like the direction of the film, so she decided to play legal hardball. It's classic power play disguised as a plea for justice. You really can't make this stuff up.
It just blows my mind how dumb Blake Lively's team is, and how just, I guess, egocentric, maniacal that she thinks that she can tell the world, you didn't see what you actually saw with your eyes. It's insane.
The accusations? Blake tried to bulldoze her way into full control, overriding co-directors, manipulating the script, and scheming for sequel rights. Timing's everything. Her harassment claims only popped up after creative clashes, not during. If you're really being harassed, you don't wait 6 months to file complaints right after your script ideas get rejected. That's not justice. It's plotting.
They weren't the first to do this. It was Blake Lively, it was Ryan Reynolds, this was their strategy, and now they kind of want to put the genie back in the bottle. But guess what? The genie does not want to go back in the bottle. The genie likes to be free.
If we're talking actual malice, which the law requires to prove defamation, this is textbook. Malice means acting out of hatred or ill will. And here's Blake, leaking to the media, controlling the narrative, building a legal fortress, all while painting herself as some kind of martyr. It's giving PR manipulation. It's giving defamation in disguise. It's giving calculated chaos. Court insiders even suspect she filed her original harassment complaint just to shield herself legally when the defamation countersuit hit. That's not bravery. That's a weaponized legal loophole dressed up in lipstick and designer heels.
I mean, is it not a little hypocritical? Is this a bad look of her if she's trying to tell the courts that we should stop talking about this in public?
And just when you think this circus couldn't get more Hollywood, enter Ryan Reynolds, everyone's favorite quick-talking Deadpool, suddenly playing Blake's unofficial legal bulldog. If Blake's the public victim, Ryan's the backroom enforcer. Allegedly, he's been calling Baldoni a predator to industry insiders, including a WME executive. No legal proof, just vibes. Just pure, unfiltered slander. Why? To defend his wife, flex some twisted Hollywood loyalty, or just stir the pot for fun. Oh, and let's not forget the nice pool debacle. Ryan openly admitted his Deadpool parody character was based on Baldoni. And that character acts erratic, creepy, borderline psychotic. But sure, Blake's the one being wronged here.
Baldoni's first amendment complaint, he talks a lot about Miss Lively's overall scheme to take over the movie. And I think that a lot of that is going towards that she had an ulterior motive when it came to what she was doing. And it seems to me that that could form the basis or the factual basis for actual malice.
Ryan Reynolds' motion to dismiss was a legal train wreck. Critics called it bombastic, sloppy, and unnecessarily cruel. Instead of helping Blake Lively, it turned a legal filing into a theatrical rant, making any hope of settlement nearly impossible. While Blake's team at least tried to maintain a veneer of professionalism, Ryan went full flamethrower, escalating the situation from tense to total chaos.
This dispute, these words that were said by Lively side had a clear, immediate negative impact on Baldoni.
And the damage didn't stop there. Blake's entire legal strategy is built on shaky ground. She filed in California, banking on Section 47.1, a law that likely doesn't even apply due to jurisdiction issues. Her harassment claims, they look more like office drama than genuine misconduct, conveniently surfacing only after she lost creative control. Then Ryan jumped in with defamatory remarks, making things worse, not better. Together, they've turned a serious lawsuit into a tabloid-level spectacle.
You can make your CRD complaint if that's what you want to do. Still can't be sued for defamation. And once you make that CRD complaint, it's covered not only by the litigation privilege, but you can communicate it to the Times, and it's covered under the fair reporting privilege.
Now the financial risk is all on Baldoni. If he loses, Section 47.1 could force him to cover Blake's entire legal bill, treble damages, and even punitive damages. Blake, on the other hand, she risks nothing. A completely rigged game. She thought she was dominating a courtroom chess match, but she walked into a high-stakes poker game with no cards, while Baldoni holds the ace.
Okay, so I was able to read the amended complaint, which, by the way, it's very abnormal. It's almost 180 pages, 400 and some odd paragraphs. Complaints are not normally that long, but this one has to be for public consumption.
And you know what happens if Blake loses? Nothing. Zero. She walks away with her overpriced shoes untarnished, her bill unpaid, and her reputation pretending to be intact. This law is structured like a rigged poker game where only one player, Baldoni, has real chips on the table. Blake? She's bluffing with monopoly money and still acting like the queen of strategy.
But here's the real problem for him, and our concern for Baldoni is if he goes forward and he loses his countersuit based on defamation, there's a huge risk to him because he then has to pay Lively's attorney's fees, treble damages, punitive damages. It's a huge risk.
Meanwhile, let's not forget Baldoni and his crew at Wayfarer are already drowning in legal filings. They've been hit with not one, not two, but 4 separate 12, 6 motions, and just fighting those off is costing them over $1 million. Sure, they've got billionaire executive Steve Sarowitz backing them, but even billionaires start sweating when they're burning cash by the stack. Blake's team thought it would be cute to poke at him too. Her attorney literally mocked his wealth in the motion to dismiss, saying his $100 million war chest might not go as planned. Oh, how clever. Nothing like flaunting your privilege while snidely mocking someone for fighting back.
If you have somebody who has a significant amount of power in the industry and has the ability to tell stars not to go on your podcast in the future, and has general ability to make life uncomfortable for you and ask for a favor, you're more inclined to do it, right?
Blake Lively's victim act is falling flat, and the public isn't buying it. She's not some powerless figure, she's Hollywood elite, twisting legal protections into weapons. Section 47.1 wasn't made for celebrities throwing tantrums over creative control. Her CRD filing, media leaks, and legal loopholes scream manipulation, not justice. Legal experts are calling in a legal Judah move gone wrong, and judges can see through the act. Blake's lawsuit feels more like a PR stunt than a genuine cry for help.
And she gets a little strike at Steve Starowitz here when she says that Steve Starowitz may indeed make good on his threat to spend $100 million litigating against Miss Lively, but perhaps not in the way he planned.
Well, that's kind of fun.
The biggest threat to Blake right now, if the court decides she acted with malice or didn't have a reasonable basis to file those estate claims, Section 47.1 crumbles. Gone. Shredded. Null and void. Once that legal shield is stripped away, her motion to dismiss becomes a pile of useless paper, and Baldoni's lawsuit charges forward like a bull through a glass boutique. And where are things now? This case isn't fading quietly. If anything, it's heating up. Baldoni's countersuit, far from dismissed, it's probably heading straight to a jury trial, especially if the court grants him permission to file a second amended complaint, which seems more and more likely by the day.
She wants different rules for her than she wants for Baldoni and his team, which I don't think the judge will agree with.
And for Blake, things are spiraling fast. This isn't just about legal exposure anymore, it's about financial liability and a crumbling public reputation. Once the public turns, it turns hard. Fans who once adored her are now picking apart her statements. Even some of her allies, going radio silent. When your own supporters start wondering if you gamed the system, you know the PR storm's already brewing. Legal analysts aren't holding back either. They're calling this a watershed moment, not because it ends the case, but because it finally exposes Blake's legal strategy for what it really is: hollow. All the smoke and mirrors, all the press narratives, all the high-gloss legal maneuvers. It's unraveling, and it's happening fast. We're at the edge of what could be the most explosive celebrity lawsuit of 2025. Not because of the crime, not because of the countersuit, but because Blake Lively, in all her calculated grandeur, underestimated one thing: the court can still spot a manipulator. She thought she was playing chess, but baby, this isn't checkmate. It's just the beginning of the meltdown. Blake's legal house of cards is collapsing. Stay tuned for the next chapter in Hollywood's most chaotic courtroom showdown.
And then the jury has to look at the totality of that evidence and say, is that malice? And there's certainly evidence that would lead one to believe a jury could find that.